everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be working on a type racer program in Python. So the way that this game is going to work is that we're going to be able to give a user a random sentence, and the user will have to try to type it out as quickly as they can. If they make any mistakes or if there are any typos, they're going to have to write it over and over and over again until they get it correct. And then the program is going to let them know how long it took for them to write that sentence in seconds. So in this project, we're going to be working with lists, indexing, while loops, time, and randomness. So if you haven't learned about any of those things yet before, check out our channel where we teach all of these different concepts first, and then come back here and work on this program with me. So without further ado, let's get into today's project. All right, so as you can see here, I have a blank project up and ready to go. The only thing I've done so far is give my project a name, Type Racer. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start by giving the user a little welcome message, welcoming them to the game, and a little like ready, set, start type of implementation to our project, just to get it started. So to do this, I'm going to start off actually by using the input function, and you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to say input, and I'm going to say, welcome to Type Racer. Press enter to play. So as you know, the input function usually gives the user whatever you put inside the parentheses, so this prompt, and then usually what we do is we have some type of variable at the beginning that whatever the user answers will then be stored inside that variable. So then we can say something like print the variable, right? So let me go ahead and try that. And so if I type something in, hello, we see hello printed, right? However, notice what happens if I don't type anything in, if I just hit enter. It moves to the next line, right? And right now there's nothing to print, so that's why there's this little blank right here. But what we're going to actually use the input for is just kind of like a fancier way of getting the program to start and like have an interactive start to the game. So if I just use the input command without storing the answer inside a variable or anything, you'll notice that it doesn't matter what I type. As long as I hit enter, it'll move on and continue from there. So that's one way to make it so that the beginning of this game is a little bit more interactive. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just print out something like ready, set, go. So I'm going to say print, ready, print, set, and then instead of go, I'll say type. Oops. There you go. Type. Wow, I'm really bad at texting today. Okay, so let's try that. Press enter to play. So notice that these three print statements are not running yet, right? It's waiting for me to actually hit enter. And now it says ready, set, type. So I kind of want this to be sort of like a countdown where it says ready, it waits for a second, set, waits for a second, and then type, right? So how can we do this? This is where time actually comes into our project. So time, there's a module called time that has been pre-created for us that has a lot of different functions that we can use that we want to use in our project. So to get this little package, we're going to say import time. So again, this is like something that has already been built and has a bunch of different functions that we can use in our project. So now that we have time imported into our project, over here, I'm going to go ahead and say time.sleep. And then the thing that I'm going to put inside is the number 1. So what this does is that this tells the computer to wait for 1 second, which is why I put in 1 inside the parentheses, before going on to the next line. So if I put this here as well, it's going to wait 1 second after we print out set before it prints out type. So let's see what this looks like. Press enter to play. Ready, set, type. So here we go. We have our ready, set, type. And again, we were able to add some pauses in between by using the time.sleep function. All right. So now here's where we would want to give the user a random sentence, right? And that user will have to try to type it in as quickly as possible. So I'm going to actually come up here and I'm just going to create a list of different strings that I can give the user. So I'm going to go ahead and say sentences, and then I'm going to do this in the form of a list. And then I'll go ahead and put in some sentences. So for example, you can put in Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
So there's sentence number 1. Outside of the quotation marks, I'm going to go ahead and put a comma, and this is how you can put several things inside of a list. So all the items in a list are separated by commas. And I actually have my list of sentences all ready to go, so I don't have to think on the spot. So I'll go ahead and just replace this with that. So go ahead and put whatever sentences that you want inside of your string over here. So as you can see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sentences that we can generate a random sentence from. So what I want to do is I want to choose one of these random sentences, right? So I'll come back down under here and I'll say sentence singular. So sentence singular, and I want to choose one of these random sentences. So how can we do that? Well, in order to use randomness, we're going to have to use another package called random. So up here, I'm going to say import random. And again, this is a package that's going to allow us to use a bunch of different functions that have to do with randomness, producing a random number. So like we said, we have 6 different sentences here. So I want to create a random number that will get us one of these sentences. However, remember that in a list, each item is represented by an index. So like a placeholder that lets us know where in the list it is. And indices always start at 0 instead of 1. So this first sentence is actually at an index 0. The next sentence is at index of 1. And the very last sentence, the 6th sentence, will be at an index of 5. So what I want to do is I actually want to create a random number between 0 and 5 instead of 1 and 6. So to do that, I'm going to say random.randint, and then I'm going to put in the range of numbers that I want to choose from. So I'm going to say 0 and 5. Okay, so if I get 0, for example, we're going to get Peter Piper. And if I say 5, we're going to get the 6th sentence. Okay, so right now, if I go ahead and print out sentence, what do we get? Before I go ahead and hit run, try to make a guess in your head. What do you think is going to be printed if I print out sentence? And let's see if you're correct. Okay. So press enter to play. Ready, set, type. Notice that we get the actual number, right? Not the sentence of that number. So how can we use this number that we got? And if I run it again, you'll see that I'll get a different random number. If it's, oh, okay. Let's try one more time to prove that it is indeed random. There we go. So now this time we got 2. So how can we use this number to index into our list of sentences and get the sentence that is stored at this specific index? Well, all of this is our number, right? Random.random 0 to 5 represents this entire number. And we want to index our list of sentences by this number. So before our random.random, I'm going to say sentences, and I'm going to put square brackets around our random number. So what this is saying is that we're going to take our list called sentences, and we're going to index into this list at this random number that we produce. So for example, if the random number is 2, then it's going to be 0 is the first one, 1 is the second one, and then 2 is the next one. So if it was 2, it's going to say this third sentence. So now let's go ahead and try running it. Press enter. Ready, set, go. And notice we get a random sentence. And if I try again, we get another sentence. Okay, so we generated our random sentence, and now we want to ask the user to type that sentence in, right? So I'll go ahead and get rid of this print statement for now. And actually, no, I'll keep it. And then I'm going to say, let's say user input. I'm going to use user input to get the user's input of the sentence, so their version of the sentence. And so I can use the input function and say, I'll just say a simple type so that they know that they can type in their sentence. So let's see what that looks like. Ready, set, go. And then look at that. It now allows me to type. And I'm going to create a little space here so that we have it. And just to create some space in between, I'll go ahead and put in some blank print statements. That way it'll just create like a blank line in between our different pieces of code. So ready, set, type. So notice how there's like a line here, right? And this is the sentence that the user needs to type in. And so now here the user can type in that sentence.
Whose shoes does he choose? And there we go. So notice that nothing happens, right? So after the user types in the sentence, what do we have to do? We have to check to see if the sentence that they input is the exact same as the sentence that was given to them. And if it is not the same, right, we want to keep asking the user for this question. So pause this video for a second and try to think, how can we ask the user over and over again for the same sentence and only let them know how long it took them after they've correctly written out the entire sentence? What do you think could be a good idea for this? And again, there are usually not only one right answer when it comes to these things. There are usually many ways of doing it, but I want you to think about how you would go about doing it before I tell you how I'm going to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a while loop. So if you don't remember what a while loop is, a while loop allows us to repeat code over and over again until a specific condition is met. So this allows us to run code indefinitely until, again, some rule is broken. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continuously ask the user to write the sentence over and over again until they write it correctly. So while the sentence is wrong, I want them to repeat that code. So I'm going to go ahead and say while, and I'm going to say user input is not equal. So not equals, if you want to say it is equal to, we'd use double equals. And if we want to say not equal, we can use exclamation point equal. And so while the user's input is not equal to the sentence that we gave them, I'm going to ask them to try again. So I'll say, I will use the same user input since we already checked to see if it's wrong, so we can just reuse that variable for them to try typing it again. And I'll say user input that, or I'll say the sentences do not match. Please try again. Like that. And I'll put like colon over here. Oops. Like that. So please try again. So originally when the user starts, they're gonna get this little type print statement, but then once they get it wrong, they're gonna get this new sentence that they're gonna keep getting over and over again until they get the question correct. Okay, so the rule that needs to be broken is that user input should equal sentence. So while user input is not equal to sentence, so while what the user typed in is not the same as the sentence that we gave them, we're gonna keep asking them this question. Okay. So now let's say, let's try running this and seeing how it works. So enter, ready, set, type. And I'm just gonna mess this up. And notice that it says sentences don't match, please try again, mess it up again, mess it up again. And now I'm gonna try typing it in correctly. Woodchuck, chuck, if a woodchuck could chuck wood. And there we go. Notice that the program has ended because I finally did get the sentence correct. All right, so we are almost there. What do we want to do? We want to tell the user how long it took for them to type in that sentence, right? So how can we do this? Once again, we can use the time package from before. So there are there's a function that we can use that lets us know the time that we're currently in. So time.time lets us know, if I say print, for example, time.time, what this will do is it'll tell us what time it is in terms of seconds. So this actually requires a little bit of context. So when computers were built and time started to be a thing that we needed to incorporate in computers, computer scientists decided that they wanted everything to start from January 1st, 1970. So when we talk about time elapsed since a certain time, we're talking about the number of seconds that has passed since January 1st, 1970. So if I print out time before we type in the sentence, and then I print out the time again afterwards, let's see what we get. So enter, ready, set, go. If a dog choose shoes, whose shoes does he choose? So notice I get two different numbers, right? I get one number that is really long, and then another number that looks pretty similar to it, right? So this is the amount of seconds that has elapsed both before and after we typed out this sentence. Okay, so we can see it here. There's print time, that time, and then this. So notice that these numbers are really close to each other, right? Why is that? That's because I actually put this time after I typed it. So let me actually move this up one so that before I type, it actually tracks how much time elapsed after I've already typed it. So let's try this again. So hit enter, ready, set, type. I saw Susie, and notice that it already has a time for us at the top in a shoe shine shop. Oh no, I saw Susie. What did I do? Oh, I said sitting wrong. Sitting in a shoe shine shop. There we go. So now you can see that we have the first part of these numbers look similar, right? We have all the way to 386, but it took me about 20 seconds to write out this sentence, right? So this is a really long number, and it doesn't really help the user know how long it took for them to write it. Unless they looked really closely at it, they probably will get very confused. So how can we use this to let the user know just how many seconds has passed since they wrote it? So how long did it take them to write it? Not how many seconds has passed since January 1st, 1970. Well, we can subtract these times by each other. So up here, I'm actually going to say, I'm going to create a variable to store this number inside of. So I'm going to say start time is equal to time.time. So this first number is now being stored inside of start time. And then over here, I'm going to do the same thing, but this time with end time. So I'm going to say end time is equal to time.time, like that. So now what I can do is I can print out the difference between the end time and the start time to see how much time has elapsed. So I can say total time, for example, is equal to end time minus start time. And so now let me go ahead and print out total time to see what we get. Total time. There we go. Enter. Ready, set, type. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? And here we go. We have the number 13.145, but approximately 13 seconds has passed since we did this. Alrighty, so what can we do now? Well, we can actually round this number down so that it doesn't show us as many decimals after this function. So how can we do that? Well, we can do that by using the round function. So what I'm going to do is around total time, I'm going to say round and put a pair of parentheses around that because it's its own function. And inside of the round function, next to total time, I'm going to put a comma, and then I'm going to hit the number 2. So what this is going to do is it's going to round this total time down so that it only has 2 decimal points. So let's see what I mean. Let's enter. Ready, set, go. She sells seashells. Oops. By the seashore. So now it says 8.97, which is a little bit better than what we were seeing before. All right, so now we want to just let the user know in a more sentence format how they did with this game. So what I'm going to do is instead of printing round table time, I'm going to actually go ahead and put the round around here like this. And I'm going to say comma 2. So this is doing the same thing before. I just put end time and start time in a parenthesis so the computer knows that this is together. But this is the first item, total time, comma 2. And so now here, I'm going to let the user know how they did. So I can say, you finish typing in. And now I want to say total time plus seconds. Okay, so let's try that and see how it works. Ready, set, go. If you notice this notice, you will notice that this notice is not worth noticing. Okay, so we got an error. Can you guess what the error is telling us to do or why we got an error? Well, we can see that they say that the error is somewhere on line 30, which is our very last line. It's showing us the line that it is, so I can confirm that it is that line. And then it says type error. You can only concatenate strings, not float to strings. So usually when you get an error like this, it usually gives you a hint about what they're considering a string or a float based on the order that they said. So here it's saying you can only concatenate a string, not a float to a string. So somewhere in here, they're telling me that there's a float, which is just a number with a decimal on it, that is trying to be concatenated, aka added. String concatenation is when you add strings together using the plus sign. So it's saying that we're trying to add something that isn't a string with something that is a string, right? And can you guess what's not a string? Total time, because this is the number that we just did. So what we want to do is we want to convert this into a string first before adding it to the rest of our sentence. So now if I go ahead and try running it, hit enter. She sells seashells by the seashore. And now we can see you finished typing in 6.6 seconds. And I realized I wrote type instead of typing. But there we go. There's our program. Let's try this one more time. And I'm going to say type. I'm going to put another print statement over here. So there's a little bit of space. And I think I'm going to put one up here as well. Like that. Okay, last try. Enter. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled, and I'm going to actually mess up even though I already tried so hard. There we go. It says do not match, so try again. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. And now here we go. You finished typing in 18.65 seconds. All right, everyone, so that is it for today. That was our Type Racer program. I hope that you enjoy working on that with me today. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, please let us know in the comments down below. And until next time, I will see ya. Bye.